Have you ever stared at a flight ticket that looked cheap, clicked by with a little smile, and then watched that smile slowly die as the final price jumped higher and higher and higher, until you were left wondering one simple question: when did flying turn into a game designed to drain every last dollar from your wallet without you even noticing? Because in 2026, airline fees are no longer just annoying aid, they are a carefully engineered system. And most travelers, smart ones included, have absolutely no idea how deep it goes. And I'm telling you this as a professional travel planner, an airport security insider, and someone who has spent years quietly observing how airlines, airports, and regulators really operate behind the scenes. And here's the uncomfortable truth: nobody on YouTube is spelling out clearly your ticket price in 2026 is no longer the price of transportation. It's the price of entry into a maze. And every step you take inside that maze costs extra. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot, sometimes in ways you don't even recognize as fees. And it starts before you even search for the flight. Because airlines now use dynamic behavioral pricing models that track demand patterns, booking windows, device types, time of day, and even route psychology, meaning the same seat on the same plane can quietly cost different people different base prices before fees even enter the conversation. And once you click that seat, the real story begins. Because the base fare in 2026 is intentionally stripped down to the bare legal minimum transportation from point A to point B. No promises, no comfort, no flexibility, and everything else is monetized aggressively, surgically, and almost invisibly. Starting with seat selection, which is no longer about legroom alone, but about algorithmic scarcity, where standard seats are intentionally limited so more passengers feel pressured into paying for preferred seating, even though the physical seat is often identical, just located a few rows closer to the front. And then there's carry-on baggage, which in 2026 has quietly become one of the most misunderstood revenue machines in aviation, because some airlines now allow a personal item that technically fits under the seat, but enforce sizing with AI-assisted scanners at certain airports. Scanners that flag bags not by common sense, but by millimeter-level compliance. Meaning, a soft backpack that fit last year can suddenly trigger a gate fee this year. And those gate fees are intentionally higher than online fees, not as punishment, but as behavioral conditioning, teaching travelers to prepay out of fear, not necessity, and checked baggage. That's a whole different psychological game, because airlines discovered that travelers are more willing to accept rising bag fees if those increases happen slowly and unevenly across routes. So in 2026, you'll see bag fees that vary not just by airline, but by airport, by season, and sometimes by direction of travel, with return flights costing more to check the same bag, because the data shows you're less likely to cancel once you're already away from home. And then come the change fees, or what airlines now prefer to call fare adjustment costs. Because while many carriers advertise no change fees, what they don't emphasize is that fare differences in 2026 are intentionally volatile. Meaning, the price gap you must pay to change a flight is often larger than the old flat change fee ever was, especially on popular routes. And here's where airport security and operational realities quietly tie into your wallet. Because new security staffing models and biometric screening systems, while marketed as convenience upgrades, have created tiered processing experiences, where basic economy passengers may face longer lines or fewer rebooking options during disruptions, subtly nudging frequent travelers toward bundled fares that include priority support, which is just another fee with a nicer name. And disruptions are key here, because airlines in 2026 rely heavily on disruption economics, knowing that weather delays, crew timing issues, and air traffic constraints will force rebooking scenarios where passengers are most vulnerable, tired, stressed, and more likely to accept paid solutions without resistance. And that's why same-day standby, once a courtesy, is now often a paid option. And why rebooking assistance through apps sometimes offers paid instant solutions, while free options are buried deeper in menus. And if you think in-flight services are immune, think again, because onboard pricing has become a testing ground for microfees, with some airlines experimenting with dynamic in-flight pricing, where snacks, Wi-Fi, or even entertainment access costs change based on flight length, occupancy, or time of day. And yes, some of this is already happening quietly, just not loudly advertised. And then there's the credit card ecosystem, which in 2026 is deeply intertwined with airline fee structures, because co-branded cards don't just offer perks, they shape airline behavior, incentivizing carriers to remove benefits from general fares so they can be restored through card ownership, turning one standard services into financial products. And from an airport operations perspective, this fee explosion also impacts how terminals function, because airports themselves now rely more heavily on passenger spending to offset infrastructure costs, which means parking fees, terminal access charges, lounge entry fees, and even curbside drop-off pricing are evolving in ways that blur the line between airline costs and airport costs, leaving travelers confused about who is charging what. Confusion, by the way, is profitable, because the less clear the system, the less likely passengers are to push back. And here's something most people never hear. In 2026, some airports and airlines are piloting predictive fee targeting, where systems estimate a traveler's willingness to pay based on booking behavior and travel history, adjusting optional fee offers accordingly, not to overcharge blatantly, but to maximize acceptance rates. And no, this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a natural extension of revenue management. And while regulators talk about transparency, enforcement lags behind innovation, especially when fees are technically optional, even if functionally unavoidable. And as an airport security expert, I can tell you that operational constraints are increasingly used as justification for monetization, with airlines framing fees as solutions to congestion, safety, or efficiency issues, even when the underlying problem is capacity planning, not passenger behavior. And the most shocking part? Many travelers unknowingly defend this system, because airlines have successfully reframed fees as choice, when in reality, the choice is often between paying more now or paying much more later. And this brings us to the human side of the story, because I've watched families at gates argue over bag fees, business travelers miss meetings over seat restrictions, elderly passengers confused by app-only services, and solo travelers feel embarrassed at the counter when a surprise charge appears. And none of this shows up in glossy commercials or influencer but it's real, daily, and growing. And if you're wondering whether this trend will slow down, the honest answer is no. Not unless consumer behavior changes or regulations catch up. Because, from a pure business perspective, fees are more stable than fares, less visible than ticket prices, and less emotionally compared across airlines, making them the perfect revenue stream. And this is why, in 2026, the cheap flight headline is often the most expensive option once the dust settles. And here's the part most creators skip, because it doesn't sound exciting, but it matters the most. Understanding this system doesn't mean you stop flying. It means you stop being surprised. And surprise is what costs you the most, financially and emotionally. So if you want a real, practical suggestion at the end of all this, one that actually works in the real world and not just in theory, here it is. Before you book any flight in 2026, slow down, open the fare rules, map out every step of your journey from home to destination and back. Ask yourself where friction could happen. Prepay only the fees that truly apply to you. Ignore the rest. And most importantly, stop judging a flight by its base price alone, because the smartest travelers aren't the ones who find the cheapest ticket. They're the ones who understand the full system before it understands them.